In October 2022, US President Joe Biden rolled out strict export controls aimed at blocking China's access to advanced tech and slowing down its military progress. These controls ban the export of cutting-edge chips, chip design software, chip manufacturing equipment, and even US-made parts used in manufacturing equipment to China. What's more, these rules don't just apply to American companies, they also impact any company worldwide that uses US semiconductor technology. That basically covers all the top chip makers around the globe. Plus, US citizens, residents, and green card holders are now banned from working at Chinese chip firms. In simple terms, the Biden administration is trying to stop China from getting its hands on the best chips and the machines needed to make them. These advanced microchips are key to driving innovation in areas like e-commerce, robotics, medical imaging, pharmaceutical research, self-driving cars, and so much more. The US has made it clear that it wants to keep these cutting-edge chips out of China's reach. But here's the thing. The US strategy to cut China off from advanced microchips might not be working. Take Intel, for example. Its shares have dropped 26%, and the company is planning to cut 15,000 jobs. So in today's video, we'll dive into why Biden's export controls on China aren't as effective as they were meant to be, and how trying to contain China's rise might have backfired. Before you keep watching, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to show your support. The US is losing the biggest market in the world. The US semiconductor industry is a big deal, employing over 1.8 million Americans across at least 44 states and generating $264 billion in revenue, according to industry reports. But by cutting off the Chinese market, set to be as large as the consumer markets of France, Germany, and Italy combined, and expecting taxpayers to cover the difference with subsidies, these jobs could be at risk. China is Intel's biggest market, making up nearly 26% of the company's revenue in 2023, just barely edging out the US. Back in 2021, before PC sales took a hit after the pandemic, China was an even bigger piece of Intel's revenue pie. As China pushes to reduce its dependence on Intel, especially outside of government and state-owned enterprises, a larger share of Intel's revenue from China could be at risk in the coming years. This will make it even tougher for Intel to bounce back in the PC and server CPU markets. On the flip side, Chinese telecom giant Huawei had its best year of growth in 2023 since 2019, brushing off the impact of US sanctions. These sanctions were originally slapped on Huawei in 2019, when Trump's administration labeled the company a security threat, a claim Huawei has always denied. Then in August last year, Huawei dropped a bombshell with the Mate 60 Pro smartphone, powered by a homegrown chip that US sanctions were supposed to block. The fact that Huawei could pull off an advanced smartphone with 5G support without key American components left industry experts stunned, signaling that Huawei and Chinese tech have hit a new level of self-sufficiency. Meanwhile, Apple has been feeling the heat in China. iPhone sales in the country took a sharp 19.1% dive in the first quarter of this year as Apple faced fierce competition from domestic brand Huawei, whose smartphone sales surged by a massive 69.7% in the same period. All of this points to one thing. US export controls and sanctions on China haven't just fallen short, they've actually sped up China's journey towards self-sufficiency. China bites back. As China works to reduce its reliance on foreign tech, the government has rolled out new guidelines aimed at replacing Intel and AMD processors in government PCs and servers with domestic alternatives. They're also looking to phase out Microsoft Windows and other foreign database software. On top of that, state-owned enterprises in China are being pushed to cut their dependence on foreign hardware and software with a deadline set for 2027 to complete the transition. But that's not the only thing worrying the West. Legacy chips are becoming a big concern too. These chips, found in everything from washing machines to cars, TVs, and medical devices, aren't as powerful as the cutting-edge semiconductors used in AI, but they're becoming a growing headache for the US and the EU due to China's dominance in this market. Washington has already blocked Chinese firms from accessing the latest and greatest chips in hopes of slowing down Beijing's tech ambitions. Now, the focus is shifting to legacy chips, where China controls almost a third of the world's manufacturing capacity. With limited access to advanced chips, Beijing has ramped up investments in producing these mature chip technologies. Last year, China announced a $40 billion state-backed investment fund to boost domestic semiconductor production, sparking calls in the West for action to support their own chip makers. The West is worried that if China masters legacy chip manufacturing, it could flood the market with these chips, driving prices down sharply, similar to what happened with solar panels. China, being a manufacturing powerhouse, has already taken control of much of the supply chain, giving them an edge that many consider unfair. Over the next 3 years, China's legacy chip capacity is expected to grow to 39% of the global market. Some reports even predict that China will add more chip-making capacity this year than the rest of the world combined, producing 1 million more legacy chips per month than last year. And it's not just China in the game. India wants a piece of the action, too. The Indian conglomerate Tata Group is investing $11 billion to build its own chip foundry in Dholera, Gujarat, which could add to the potential overcapacity in the chip supply chain. Meanwhile, Taiwanese chipmakers, who currently hold nearly half of the world's chip production capacity, are shifting their focus to advanced chips, along with the US, South Korea, and Japan. But as China's investment in legacy chips ramps up, Taiwan's overall market share might take a hit. In short, the US export controls and sanctions on China have not only failed, they've actually backfired. According to a report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, these export controls have hurt US tech companies and haven't been successful in cutting China off from the technology. Instead, they've fueled innovation in China's tech sector. The report says the US has imposed export controls to deny China access to strategic technologies, but we find no evidence of reshoring or friendshoring. As a result of these disruptions, affected suppliers have negative abnormal stock returns, wiping out $130 billion in market capitalization, and experience a drop in bank lending, profitability, and employment. US firms' total number of customers declines, potentially inflicting collateral damage upon the same US firms whose technology export controls are trying to protect. In other words, US firms are almost taking a total loss. They're losing customers, revenue, and market value. Meanwhile, the Chinese firms affected by these sanctions are finding new suppliers, and China is ramping up its own innovation and self-reliance. So, what do you think? Do you agree with this video? Share your thoughts and leave your comments below. If you liked what you watched, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to our channel to show your support.